Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Allah fi kulli umri yasta'in. Allah fi kulli umri amjid. Innani othe Allah ala kitabuhu kareem wa sunnati rasuli alayhi salatu wassalam bayati. Muhammadan huwa sayyidina makbubana wa innahu kana rasuluna nabiyyan. Salawatu rabbi taslimatihi alayhi. يقاتله من أنبياء ومرسلين أجمعين. صلوات الله تعالى وسلامه عليهم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته للإخوان وأخواتي في إفريقيا وأوروبا آسيا وأمريكا وكل مكان. سلام على من يتبع هدى للإخوان وأخواتي وكل مكان. أهلا وسهلا بكم. Well, thank you, my brothers and sisters, for those who are here. Assalamu alaikum, my dear sister Amina, and those who will show up in the chat, inshallah ta'ala. We're continuing our series here on the Aqeedah and the nullifiers of our faith. And we covered last time a serious one where I went into depth on the vestiges of those who practice sorcery. And I will conclude with that, and then I will start on the other part, which is section 8, which deals with the support of the disbelievers and their militaries. And as you recall, I gave you in depth, harsh reality of, and brought you into a life, brought you to look at the life of those who practice this type of thing that you're not accustomed to seeing perhaps in Europe or in America. And, and it probably opened up some eyes. Anyone who takes the courses from the Sheikh Islam about sorcery will come out thoroughly amazed and educated. And these vestiges of sorcery and magic and whatnot is so prevalent, as I explained to you last time, through Africa in particular, but it's everywhere in Muslim states. You can't go any place in the Muslim states and not find it. It's there, but it's everywhere. I mean, it's in America. It's just that you have different people practicing it and you're not affected by it. And some people may be affected by it and don't know it. So I will talk about now, as I explained, you have been, say, the person who's been hit by magic or sorcery. In Islam, we have one remedy. We don't go to another fortune teller to get us right away from the sorcerer or what magic potion he put over you and so forth and so on. We have remedies only according to our sunnah and according to the fuqaha ulama who gave decisions and outlined what is needed according to the Quran and the sunnah in order to fight the sorcerer and his source of magic, which deals with shaitan, the devil. And the first thing that we have to do is we have to, again, return to subhanahu wa ta'ala and make it even more ibadah. Once you know that this stuff is prevalent around you, you need to turn to him more and making your prayer, meaning your dua, your hands, and you're making your dua to him, asking him to relieve you of this and protect you from the demons that have been sent against you. Or if you have ailments from drinking this poison or something like this, to ask for shifa, for good health from this. This is the remedy that we use inside Islam. We do not go to a fortune teller. And let me tell you what the Prophet ﷺ has said about that. He said he is innocent excuse me, that was another. I was, excuse me, that's not what I meant to say. Not innocent of. He says here that in a hadith, authentic hadith, and I'm translating here from the Arabic, it says, whoever goes to a fortune teller or a soothsayer and believes in his words and has disbelieved in what was revealed to Muhammad. This is what our Prophet ﷺ has said. So any of us who goes to a fortune teller to have our palms read, or go to a fortune teller to have, for him to mix a potion to ward off the evil spirits that you think that's around you. This in itself is an apostated act. You can't do it. And you heard now what the Prophet ﷺ has said here. And also in this hadith, he said that he talks about the magic and the sorcery. And he says here that it's the deeds of the devil. I mean, straight out, he says straight out. This ends what some of the Muslims who practice this claim that there's no repercussions on them. There's no proof against them that what they're doing is wrong. Because they are just basically saying, he says, look, yeah, I practice this. I go through my qayyad, machinations of shaitan, but I still pray, I still fast, I still do everything like every other Muslim does. Well, it doesn't work like that. I've given you the proofs last week. And here the Prophet ﷺ has got the point talking about, again, if you're seeking the remedies against this. And the second one I want to mention here in remedy is the favorite one that Muslims from every age, and this is the invoking a curse of Allah and asking that he be suffice for them against the disbelievers, against the musicians and the sorcerers and the evil people who practice this. And in Arabic, we say, Hasbi Allah wa ni'mal wakil. These are powerful words, and they're not to be used at leisure. This is used in circumstances where it's warranted because it is very powerful. You'll find these words here in the third surah, and you'll find it there, and it's clear. And every Sheikh Islam has wrote about this meaning, and the meanings are almost all identical, but they have some variances here. But it's not to be used in circumstances, you're walking down the street and you see a cab man and he forgets to pick you up, so he goes down the street and you curse him. No, you can't use it like that. In circumstances like this, where you have clear evidence that sorcery is being used against you, you have evidence that the person around over here is using this against you. You know this, and you know that there's people, even it's hidden and you do not know who they are. You can say this phrase, and you can say this phrase many times. Subhanahu wa ta'ala understands that, because remember what the hadith says, when you use this, it runs up to the heavens and it returns. So if you use it wrong, the sayat, the demerit comes back on you. But when it's said correctly and it's done correctly and it's against the right people, this is not a demerit. This is correct. So that's the second shifa, to get help from this. The third is strengthening your ethkar. Okay, this is you remember some of you in English, they even have this now. At nighttime, you say, there's many verses you can say, even in the Quran, and also there's certain verses like Surah Kursi and the verses, the last verses of the Quran, where you can use those three and you can recite those, and you recite those in threes. And the Surah Ikhlas, and you say this 3 times. Then you go to the next one and you recite it, and then the last one, Surah, the last 114 is Surah An-Nas, and then you recite these each 3 times in order to ward off the evil spirits. Then the fourth one, you can say the Fatiha You can say this up to 7 times. They use this as well. So this is very valuable as well. You use this and you say Fatiha 7 times. And let me add something to you, my dear brothers and sisters. Essentially, every single word and passage, verse inside the Quran can be used as a vehicle to defeat the evil forces that are around you. You don't have to necessarily use these, but these have been that the scholars of old and our predecessors said these work the best against these types of situations. But if you don't remember those, but you have remembered some other verses in the Quran, they're just as well. Why? Because everything that's coming, everything that you are reciting is from Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, his words. So therefore, those words have special meaning, and they are muqaddas, meaning they are sacred. And you can use it even to blow into water. And they have found, these are Tuba scientists and the famous Japanese scientists, they found that when they took water and they actually used the words of the Quran over it, they found that the water was improved greatly. They took the so-called Bible and they read over it. It did not have such effect. So why is that? Now, these are not Muslims. This is not trick photography. I didn't do it. I didn't, or Mina or another Muslim. They didn't do this and put this out there on YouTube. It's there. They did it. And these are they were 2 German scientists plus 1 Japanese, well-noted astrologer. And he's also a physicist. I think it is. I can't remember last time I saw that. And because they came across at a convention, a Muslim scholar. And he said, have you ever tested our water, the Zamzam? They did find it. And they found that this water was far different than any other water on this earth. And then he also added, he said, have you ever tested after the water had received the words from the Quran? And they said, no. So they went on ahead and tested it, and they found and they gave their report. And it was astonishing. These 3 particular hard-nosed, they were not Muslims. I think 2 of them were Antichrist. They were disbelievers, and the other one was, I think, a Christian. I can't recall. But anyway, they did this. They examined the water after the Quran was read over it and found the water had increased its value and its improvement tremendously. When they did this with the Bible, no such effect. That tells you something, my brothers and sisters, that the Quran is real and the words of the Quran from Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Because how can that be? You take water and you read off the Quran and you blow into the water. The words from there goes into the water and the water's improved. Interesting, isn't it? And those who are Muslims and non-Muslims, you do your research, you find that it's fascinating. So anyway, we go back to number 6. You can read also Surah Kafirun, which is, I think, I think Surah was 110 or something. I believe it is something like that, 110. You can read that as well. If you remember this verse here, I know this verse by heart, but if you remember this verse, this deals with it. This is the only time that Subhanahu wa Ta'ala actually has made the condition that all disbelievers, and he put them in one camp, those who fight the Muslims and those who are friendly to the Muslims and all the other disbelievers. He put them in one bundle here. And and you remember what he said in this beautiful, beautiful surah. He's telling you and he's telling the Muslims. He's saying in this surah 109, it's the disbelievers. That's what it's called in English. And here you can recite that. Because why? Because the person who uses magic is a wretched disbeliever. Bottom line, okay, a wretched disbeliever. There's no ifs, ands, buts about it. And he's worshiping something other than. And if you read what Subhanahu wa Ta'ala says in here, and I'll read it quickly here. I'll say in English. Say, O you that reject faith, disbelievers. I do not worship what you worship. 3, nor will you worship that which I worship. 4, and I will not worship that which you have been want to worship. 5, nor will you worship that which I worship. 6, to you by your way, and to me mine. This is beautiful words from Subhanahu wa ta'ala and this verse. You can recite this verse many times to ward off, again, the sorcerer. And believe me, my brothers and sisters, as I said before, those who probably went back to do research, it's real. Okay, I know that. I live around it. Even today, we have those people around. We have men and women actually doing this, and they believe in this. And you know them, especially when you are a believer, a devout believer, and you have this special covenant with Subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you've now graduated from being quote unquote a Muslim to now a movement. Subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you certain insights, and this is who they want to attack you, because they want to take you from Iman. That's why they attack you, because you burn them. So they attack you to take you from your Iman. You notice these people here, they don't attack the disbelievers. They don't attack the Salibiyin. They don't attack the robbers or the killers or the muggers or the drug dealers or any of these people. They don't attack them. They only use their magic on other Muslims who are inside the faith, who have a covenant with Subhanahu wa ta'ala. They use that on them. And yet that same sorceress who walks around here with coal black hair and the face of a she-devil walks down the street, you know what she is. She's not cursing. Here's a guy robbing somebody here. She won't curse them, but she goes to find the one who's strong and begin to go after that person. This is what they do. So you say these verses against this sorceress or the sorcerer. You say these verses against them. Subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward you for it. Now, also, the Sheikh Islams have said that you should establish the tahajjud, meaning the night prayers. Get up. It's hard, especially in the wintertime when it's cold and everything. And in the summer months here, and probably even in Europe, you have a short window between the last prayer of the night and the first prayer in the morning. And you got to get up with only 3 hours of sleep. When you get older, like me now, it's very difficult. But I make it. I get up, and I go to make prayer, which we call tahajjud. And tahajjud prayer, you can make 2, 4, 5, 10, whatever it is you can muster, and you make these prayers. This also helps. Here, this is when Subhanahu wa ta'ala lowers himself down to listen to his ibadah, ask for what he needs. Please relieve me, give me good health from the sorcerers, or please help the Muslimin, and you make dua and so forth and so on. And you in your prayers, he listens to these prayers and he answers these prayers of those who get up in the night, 1 hour, 2 hours before the first prayer of the day, and you ask Subhanahu wa ta'ala in your prayers, please to forgive for what you've done, or also to give you good health, and also to fight against the enemies of Islam and against the sorcerer and the sorceress. Now, also here, and last of this is the part of the Sharia. We have a dispute somewhat. The question was asked by the scholars, when we get these people, what do we do with them? Do we kill them? Do we give them capital punishment? Do we assassinate them? Not assassinate, but do we give capital punishment against them? The consensus from almost all scholars is yes, they are to be killed. Now, let's say this again. We have pockets in this world where we have the Sharia operating. Those who operate in this to me, are stupid and ignorant, because they should not be operating in an Islamic state, especially under the Sharia, because they know they get caught, they're going to get executed, and they have been executed. I know in Nigeria, in the northern part of Nigeria, where they operate under the Sharia, and also parts of Indonesia. We know the Maldives is under 100% Sharia. We know that Brunei is under 100% Sharia. We know parts of Pakistan, there are pockets of provinces where they're under the Sharia 100%. If you practice sorcery, you get caught, you're going to get executed, bottom line. And parts of, also in Afghanistan, under the Taliban, they catch you, you're going to be executed. And you remember the famous case, and this is where the contention is now, where the Muslims were dropping bombs, they were helping the disbelievers, remember this, in Syria, against this infamous Mujahideen group. I don't even need to mention their name. And remember, he was shot down, and they got him. Remember, they burned him alive. I don't know if you remember that. They talked about that. They were saying how draconian the laws of the Sharia, and so forth and so on. And that was that situation. But again, they also had got people that was in Syria who were practicing this thing. And what they did to them, they did exactly as the Jewish law dictates. They got them and threw them over buildings. It got them to build high buildings and dropped them down. Or they took them at cliffs and threw them down. This is what the execution. And the Torah does the same thing. There's no difference between the Sharia Islamia and the Judea law to kill these sorcerers. They do, both of them kill them the same way. Now, we don't live, most of us, in Islamic states. This is why they're allowed to flourish. This is why they can walk down the street and do what they do. But I will say, as I said before, when people catch them red-handed, they don't fare well. They never actually make it to the police. So they're killed. And nobody turns in the brothers who done it. See, so it's kind of like an unwritten rule. The police, okay, they want the guy, but they know that he will never be reached. They will never bring him in. So the people who practice this, they're taking a chance. Even if even if you live in an Islamic state that's not fully Sharia, you're taking a big chance that they catch you, you're going to be executed. If you're not executed by the police and by the Qadi, then the brothers will get you, because they don't want that, because some have been disaffected by this sorcery. So they get you, they're going to execute you. And no one's going to come to his aid and say, you know what, Yahya did it, and this man did it, and this brother over here did it. No one comes to the aid of a sorcerer. And they'll dump the body somewhere and be done with it. So with that said, the last part of this is one of the proofs that the Mujahideen groups used to execute was that, if you remember the hadith and the history, Omar radiallahu anhu, he was the second caliph, and he was told by some of his Hezbollah police that the sorcerers were really acting up in Sham. I mean, they were everywhere giving fortune telling, and they were going after people with sorcery. So he gave a fatwa ordering that they'd be all killed, not brought before him. They catched him, they fined him, and they executed him. They did. And he ridded this problem once and for all. So the Mujahideen group had precedence to use this, even though some scholars said, no, we should not kill them, but imprison them and maybe bring them to the Islam. But the consensus is no, that they should be executed. Capital punishment should be given to them. So I'm giving you education and history what has happened. Omar, he made a ruling and said, this is what we're going to do. Mujahideen groups took that and he ran with it. So when somebody came with the proof, when the judge said, okay, and they told the Hezbollah, you get this guy, you throw him from a cliff and throw him down, he had precedence for it because he can go to Omar radiallahu anhu, was the second caliph, okay, the Amir Mu'mineen, he executed these sorcerers. The other case why we have some contention from the scholars is our prophet himself, alayhi salatu wassalam. When he was told that there was many of the kahana, the kahana, the fortune tellers, there were many around and all over. So he sent out people to find these guys. So they did. He began to bring some of them forward. And some were actually executed because they were in defiance. They refused to stop to do it, and they were executed. This is a little different situation. But there was one in particular. He knew they were coming for him when they surrounded him inside of his house. They came inside his house to take him. He gave the shahadatain. Yes, he gave the shahadatain. And of course, as you know the rules, even if he's a combatant in the army and you're in war, if the enemy comes and gives shahadatain, even on the battlefield, you can't kill him. You must whisk him away to safety. And then he's examined by the proper people. He said he was wrong. He knows that the prophet is a prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, and that he will not do it again. And so he was left alone. So I gave you those examples. This is why we have the contention of the Muslim scholars. What do we do with these kind of people? We have Omar radiallahu anhu, we have our prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And the scholars deem that both of them are correct. So there's not one saying that's better than the other. Because remember something, Some of the Hezbollah, even in Prophet ﷺ, they got some of these guys and they executed because they refused to stop. They were so devilish. They were so devilish in their ways and means. They could not adapt, and so they executed them. They had no other choice. But this other one, he came to Islam, he gave Shahadatain, and they left him alone. So that's the last of the on section 7. And now we're going to move to the area of section 8. Here, my brothers and sisters, is a tough one. And the reason why I say that, because this affects, I think, thousands of Muslims today, thousands of Muslims. And they do it for a variety of reasons. Here, this particular bab, number 8, deals with the appearance of the mushrikeen and the Muslims giving support against other Muslims, supporting these disbelievers, meaning supporting the heartbeat. Remember the fourth category of disbelievers we talked about before, the heartbeat or the Salibiyin. They gave their support to them. Now, I will say to you now, this is a big, big problem. And all the consensus have been, and there's conditions here, and I can't cover all today. I'm gonna come back on number 8 again, inshallah ta'ala, because this is important. Because we do have people, and we know that many governments of the world, the disbelieving government, Tubab governments, are recruiting Muslims, especially with black faces. Now, before they weren't. They tried to send white faces among blacks. It was so obvious. And they thought their arrogance that the black people would just melt something. I don't know what they were thinking. And they knew who they were, and they couldn't get the job done. So now they need the black faces, so to speak, to go after other blacks. And it's been successful. This program has been successful. We have many blacks. We have imams. We have people who are teachers. We have all walks of life, and African Americans and Africans of African descent. They are now working with the Tubab against their brothers. They're working against brothers in Africa. There are African Americans who are working against African Americans inside America. And these individuals is what we're talking about here. And what has the scholars said about it? What has Subhanahu wa ta'ala said about this as well? And they'll say, and these guys are more of the modern Muslim type. They're not strong Muslims who do this. Believe me, they're not strong. Devout Muslim would never do this. And no Tubab, no disbeliever, even if he's another African American, could come to a strong Muslim or a mu'min, devout in his deen, come to him and say, hey, Yahya, I need you to do this, and I'll give you $1,000 per week to go to spy on a variety of brothers. I wouldn't do it, and those other brothers wouldn't do it either. So therefore, they go after softer targets. They know there's people that's poor. There's people that like live in Watts in LA, in poor areas, in some parts of Compton, California, where I was raised, and other parts that they're very poor. And they'll go to them. And when they start seeing the money, and they're Muslims, but they take the money. The scholars talk about these individuals. And then we have the other Africans. They don't go to these. These guys go to the Tubab and say, give me a job. I want to go after Yahya and his wife and his family. I want to go after these other black guys over here, these other African Americans, because they're strong Muslims. He's black himself. And he goes to the Tubab and asks for a job. Tubab smiles. He said, okay, yeah, boy. Yeah, yes, come over here, and I got a plate of victuals and a butter biscuit for you right here too. And I'll give you money every week. Yes, sir, master. I'll do this. I work real good. You can see I hate them. These brothers who do this, they're not African Americans. They're not Africans. They are apostated from the religion, and they're apostated from being one of us. They are dreadful human beings. They have been lost. And Subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't love them. Our Prophet ﷺ doesn't love them. Anyone who's not approached, walks over to the Tubab, knowing his 400, 500 history of killing Africans and killing Arabs, killing Pakistanis and Afghans, killing American Indians and all the melanated people, okay, around the world. And you go to him and ask him for a job so you can go after other melanated people. You can go after your own brothers. That's bad news. I have to tell that like it is. Those brothers, they're not brothers. They are apostated out. And you know that some of them have the nerve to say that what they're doing, they say, yeah, it may be wrong. They have led to the death of many Black American Muslims. They have led to death to many African Muslims on the continent. They have led to death of Arabs as well, and Pakistanis and Afghans. They have killed them, not with their own hands, but what they have reported and what they have seen by their treachery. And so, therefore, subhanahu wa ta'ala has nothing to do with them. You say, okay, Yahya, I heard about this. I know that the Tubab is running around the universities, and he's going to the mosque, and he's asking brothers to come to assist, and he's putting a beautiful picture. He's telling them how much money they'll get and what happens for them, and how it's all national security, and they are what you do is you're going to benefit your race. It's going to benefit Islam. Don't listen to that. It's hogwash. You remember what subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, when a wretched individual comes, a wretched Tubab comes to you and tells you to do something wrong, you should check it out first. Don't just go on his word. And especially the young Muslims. You need money. Yes, I understand. You can't get jobs. You came out of the prison. I understand. And it's hard. Only jobs you can find is at McDonald's sweeping. But at least subhanahu wa ta'ala will love you for it. He will bless you for that, even if you only make small money. But when you go to do this against his law, against the law of your prophet, والسلام, he's not going to bless you. And the proof of that is the first one. As you see, I listed here. It's Surah 5, and I've talked about this many times. And verse 51, subhanahu wa ta'ala made it clear in here. He said that the person who goes around these Christians and Jews, now remember we talked about which ones we talking about. We're not talking about all. We're talking about the ones who fight the Muslims. And then when you do this, you remember, he says that he amongst you that turns to them for friendship is of them. That's right. Meaning you are no longer a Muslim. You are just like them. If that guy who is a Tubab and you go to him and he's a crusader, he's a Salibi, you are now a Salibi because that's who you're working with. If he's a sorcerer and he's working against Muslims and he's a disbeliever on top of that, and you go to him, now you are a sorcerer. You understand the meaning here? This is what subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about. If you go around these disbelievers and they're fighting Muslims and you go with them, if you're around the crusaders, you are a crusader now. You're not a Muslim anymore. You're gone. The consensus here is from every scholar from every era, it's kufr akbar, meaning it's big disbelief, and you have apostated out of religion. Let none of these munafiqeen, and some of them are on YouTube as well, try to coax you to go work against another Muslim. Don't do it. You have apostated out. And when you reach the grave and you get caught, you will not get a janazah. And even if you are given a janazah out of nifaq, out of treachery, because no one knew what you were doing, subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. And when you get into the grave, the two angels of death will visit you and they'll give you some questions. They'll know of your history because they'll have the book right here, and they'll know that you made treachery against subhanahu wa ta'ala, against the Prophet ﷺ, and against his ummah. They'll know that. Maybe I may not know because I didn't know that you was working against the Muslims. But when you get into the grave, all this is going to be brought up. What do you think your destination is? You think you're going to be going to Jannah? No, you're going to be going straight to the fire. That's what's going to happen. You're going to go straight to the fire. So this particular verse here is one that even our prophet liked to use. Subhanahu wa ta'ala says in here that you are among them. Be mindful of that, my brothers and sisters. Don't give assistance to these people. Now, let me add something so we can understand, because I know there's people that will say, well, Yahya, I live in LA. I live in Baltimore. I work around the Tubab. I work at McDonald's. I work with Tubab. We're not talking about that, my brothers and sisters. We're not talking about that type of situation. And you're there working and you work for your family. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about you're after work or something and you go and everybody say at the office, look, I want to have a meeting and I want to meet at Jack in the Box or Denny's restaurant. You go there. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about situations like that, my brothers and sisters. Those conditions you have to do. That's your job. You live among them. You have to. There's no problem with that. We're talking about those who physically go to work and they get paid for it, or they get some worldly gain for it, and they work against the Muslims, and they hurt the Muslims by their reporting. And we know as Black people, especially in America, you don't run to the Tubab and tell them against another, because they'll most likely end up killing them, and some have done that. They've got them, cornered them in a situation in a dark street, and after your report that you reported against them that they were a strong Muslim, that they were Salafi, or they were quote Mujahideen type, they were real strong and they were anti-American, and you made a report against your brother. So they said, okay, we're going to assassinate this guy. And it happened in Detroit. Remember, 10 years ago, the reports were given to this one masjid on these brothers who were very strong. And they got him, remember, they cornered them into a warehouse, and they said they were selling drugs. And remember, they assassinated them. Remember that? It was a big thing, all because somebody among us went to the Tubabs, among the FBI and the police, and said about these brothers, they knew it was a lie, and they killed them for it. This is why this is so deadly, my brothers and sisters. It is deadly. You can't do it. The other proof here is Surah Toba, which is number 9, and the verse is 114, and again, I talked about these issues, and I know this upsets many people, and it's not my intention. I have to give you what is good and what is bad. This is my job to do this. And any Muslim who's reporting, talking about our Aqeedah, as I explained, you have to talk about the Nواقض al-Islam. You cannot avoid this. You cannot, because it's part of the Aqeedah, it's part of the Tawheed, that you have to understand your Tawheed. So you can't bypass and sugarcoat it. You have to explain what takes you out. And now Surah 9 and 14, this here is self-explanatory. Here, even in cases like this, you have to be very careful. Those who work against Muslims, who fight Muslims, even if this is your father, your brother, or your sister, you cannot go to assist them. You cannot, my brothers and sisters. See here in number 14, it says here, and he was talking about a situation here. You see Abraham prayed for his father forgiveness only because of a promise he had made to him. Now, this is a son asking for something. But when it became clear to him that he was an enemy to Allah, he disassociated himself from him. For Abraham was the most tender-hearted and forbearing. Even Abraham, salatu salam, even him. You see, this is a sorrowful verse. And he found out even his father, as much as he loved him, but he could not go to him. He could not aid him. He could not pray for him because he knew what his father was. You see, we take this from our prophet of old, and he even went away from it. So this is a warning to you, my brothers and sisters. Don't play with this. Even if it's our family, we must be steadfast, because it's going to be you who has to stand for this on the day of judgment, not them. You'll have to answer for that. And then when they're on the pedestal being examined or getting ready to go to the fire, then when you go to blame them, they're going to say, hey, I didn't ask you to follow me. Those are things that subhanahu wa ta'ala was reported that will happen inside the time about, the Yom Qiyamah. You don't want that on your books. You don't want to be in a situation like that where you follow family because you love them. I understand we all have family and you love them. So therefore you went to aid them when you shouldn't have done it. Okay. And subhanahu wa ta'ala has warned you in many places. He said, family, children, all of their fitna, be very wary of them. Be very careful of them as well. And this other one here is in Surah 58. And we got Surah 22 in this, and it's Surah 58, and the verse is 22, excuse me. And here, this is and there's some other verses also what I've been talking about. This also is talking about the sorcery, but again, the influences of the devil. I'll start at 19. I'll say this real quickly. Verse 19, the evil one has gotten the better of them, and he has made them lose the remembrance of Allah. We see that today. When a person gets involved, that they lose remembrance, even though you see them making dhikr, it's false dhikr. They are the party of the evil one. They are the Hizb Shaitan. In Arabic, this is what this means. Hizb Shaitan now, these people. Truly, it is a party of evil one that will perish. If you decide to go with any group against the Muslims, you know this is not coming from Subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know who's in between that. You have a Salibi here, a wretched man here, okay? And he is a Tubab or black man who's apostated from being black. He's here. You go and then suddenly you go to join him so you can make money to put food on the table or buy a new car or buy a house in some wealthy area. Here, this is what we're talking about. You just added, now you went to the parties of the devil. The Crusaders, the governments today, even other disbelievers call most governments today evil. They believe that the devil is behind them. Most governments most people, I don't care if you're in France, Spain, Germany, most people, they're not evil like this, but they say their governments are. And they believe that their governments are under some devilish program. And you remember something with Farrakhan. You know, when I'm not here promoting Nation of Islam. You know me better than that. I don't want to talk about them, but I want to quote something that he said one time. I found very true. He had made a comment about the White House when President Obama was about ready to be inaugurated. He had made a comment and said that whoever becomes president, when he comes in, who's sitting at the table is the devil. He has a paper here for you to sign that you sell your soul to him, that you listen, obey him. It's funny, that's what he said. But when you look at that, you ask a question about the people when they go inside the White House, what happens to them? And you notice when they come out with their face is one way, their hair is black, and then when they leave, you look at President Obama. You see how he has aged? He's aged almost like 30 years, and you have to ask why. And you look at the Bushes and the others; they have aged, I mean, tremendously. And Farrakhan made a point to say that the devil is sitting in a chair saying, if you want to rule the world, you must sign on here to be part of his Hizb. And you listen to what he tells you to do. And most of them did. And they paid the cost for it. You see them aging before you. Handsome debonair, suddenly they have aged 20, 30, 40 years. It's amazing. And the second part of that is the number verse 20. Now we're talking about Surah 59. Those who resist Allah and his messenger will be among those most humiliated. Don't do it. Again, don't join against the forces. And this is one of the proofs they use in this particular one, Bab 8 here, about joining the disbelievers against the Muslims. Don't do it. Because you are going against your prophet. When you do aid them, when you go to them, when you work for them and you assist them, you are part of the Hizb Shaitan. That's one. The Hizb Shaitan is the party of the devil, is one. Secondly, you are working against the Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam. And of course, you're working against your Lord, subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you swear by, that you say when you make your prostrations to, that you swear that you love him and that you love his way, but yet and still you go to work against his way. There's something wrong here. You go to make prostrations to him and you pray and you say the words, subhanallah, and so forth and so on, when you down in prostrations. And then what do you do when you come out of prostration? You walk out of the office and then you go after Yahya, he's a strong Muslim, and you go after him. And Yahya is following what subhanahu wa ta'ala is ordered all the Muslims to do. There's something wrong here. So you are part of the devil, even though even though you go to make prostrations and you go to the masjid to pray, but you leave the masjid and you go to work against another Muslim, you part of the devil's program, no doubt about that. And then 22, and I'll say this and I'll stop on these particular things and we'll go over here and I'm going to end this. 22, it says here, and this is Surah 59 again, and verse 22, You will not find any people who believe in Allah and the last day loving those who resist Allah and his messenger. Remember what I said? I don't care what you see Yahya doing. You see him going to the masjid. You see him making dhikr with his hands. You see him saying every other word, subhanahu wa ta'ala, alhamdulillah, as-salam. You saying so many things. Yet, you resisting the Sharia. And you work against them. You know, this is what subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about here. You will not find any people who believe in Allah and the last day loving those who resist Allah and his messenger. You can't be a believer. If you're working against subhanahu wa ta'ala and his messenger, alayhi salatu wasalam, you are not a believer. Here, this subhanahu wa ta'ala has made a expedition on you. Here, he's telling you, you're not a believer. You can't believe. Say, who believe? You will not find any people who believe in Allah and his last day loving those who resist Allah and his messenger. Who is that? These are the people, these are the traitors, these are the turncoat, these are the down the river Negroes, these are the hand bone, these are the house Negroes, these are the traitorous Arabs. Let's talk about that. You know, we talk about the things of race and all that, but we're covered about something. If any of you have read some of the things that's happening in Gaza, do you know what the Gazans have done to these traitors? Who is it that helps? You always have to ask. You hear CNN proudly, the spotter just spotted some of the leadership in a house. How did the Israelis find them? You had to ask. You had to ask a question. And you hear the reporters so proud. Oh, they just found a house where they found a tunnel. How did the Israelis find these people? How did they find this tunnel? They said they're in a meeting in a place over here, and they proudly announce it that they have been discovered. You have to ask, who found them? It's Palestinians who are working against their brothers. Yes, they are the spotters that CNN and MSNBC and these news stations in the United States talk about. It's them who are the spotters in Gaza. They go after their own people and they spot for the Israeli government and they drop bombs. And many of those bombs are over houses and they kill women. You know the story. They kill women and children. They don't even care. But I want to make a point. What did the leadership of them do when they get these people? They execute them. They execute them and they have proof to do it. They execute them because they use the proof according to what Omar has done, and also the Prophet ﷺ has done, and all of the Amir Mu'mineen, they all have done things, and I can go into a lot of history talking about like Khalid, radiallahu anhu. If you look at his history when he was unleashed on all the pagan Arab tribes, and he was unleashed against the Romans, and he was unleashed against the Persians, he was literally unleashed. And he wreaked havoc. Anybody read the stories about what he did and with a handful of men and what he done against these powers. And to make make a little bit of a story about Khalid, when the people began to apostate out, and Khalid was given the task to going to find these people and go there and to investigate, but also to take matters in his own hand. Especially after the Prophet ﷺ had died, then Abu Bakr, radiallahu anhu, he became the first caliph. He unleashed him, told him to go to Yemen. Inside Yemen, there were villages, and some of them were very harsh. Those who prayed, they began to cut their nose. Some prayed, they cut their ears. Okay, some they killed them outright. Some they banished them. When Khalid came down on them, and he found this one village, he asked him to come forward. And he asked, who cut off the nose of the Muslims? Who cut off the ears of the Muslims? Who gouged the eyes out of the Muslims? These people came forward. And all the people who did wretched things against the Muslims, he executed them. Now, you see what I'm talking about. He executed them. He didn't play with them. He executed them. The Arabs who were Muslims, who aided the Romans And they were again spotting. They went among the Muslims and they came back to the Romans. Hey, look, they got 2,000 over here. They got 7,000 over here. They gave reports to the Romans against their brothers, against the Prophet ﷺ. And what happened when they got caught? They executed them. They executed them. Some they banned from the lands. They just banned them. Others they let them escape to go live around the Romans, but they made judgment against them. If they come into Muslim lands, they would be executed. This is a serious matter. And I'm showing you what happens when you go to assist the enemies of Allah against the Muslims. There's dire consequences. Even if you're not caught, you'll be caught in the grave and you're going to go to the fire for it. There's no Jannah for you. Subhanahu wa ta'ala has made clear here about that. He's already told you here in this verse 22, in Surah 59, verse 22, that you don't believe. And I'll finish the rest of this. Even though they are their fathers, interesting, listen what he says, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even though they were their fathers or their sons or their brothers or their kindred, for such he has written faith in their hearts and strengthened them with the Spirit from himself. He will admit them to the gardens beneath which rivers flow and dwell there forever. Allah will be well pleased with them, they with him. They are the party of Allah. We call this in Arabic Hezbollah. Hezbollah. Remember Hezbollah? Remember Hezbollah there? And we don't equate them, but I'm just saying they took this phrase. And truly is the party of Allah that will achieve felicity, excuse me. So here again now, we have a verse where we talk about the believer and the person who doesn't believe because of their treachery. And my brothers and sisters, this is a serious matter. There's others here as well that they talk about this. There's many other in the Quran. And I want to get to one more and then we'll close here. Surah 60, you hear me quote Surah 60 a lot because this is a pretty interesting surah, as all of the surahs are, and 1 through 4. And I know these verses by heart, but if you read this is Surah 60, Mutahina, and the first verse is very long. And you see what has happened here and what Subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you. He's giving you an order. He's giving you an order. This goes again, what we have said about don't go to aid disbelievers against the Muslims. Don't do it. Subhanahu wa ta'ala says here, again, Surah 60, verse 1. O you believe, take not my enemies and yours as friends or protectors, offering them your love, even though they have rejected the faith that has come to you and have, on contrary, driven out the prophet and yourselves from their homes. This is part of history that these people, what they did to the prophet and the companions. Simply because you believe in Allah, your Lord. Why do you think that these people who go to assist the Tubab, what do you think it is? Yes, it's for money, but also they have something inside them that they want to go at you. You're a strong Muslim. They want to take you from the deen. They see you pray because they don't have this. They don't have this covenant with Subhanahu wa ta'ala. They don't have this love for Islam like you have. They don't have this love that they see you when you make prayer. They see that when you walk to the masjid, they see this light on you. You come inside the masjid, they see how you are, your behavior is. They want to take that from you. So what do? They go join forces with the Hizb Shaitan, the devil, and they go work with the Tubab against you. Or they work with other hypocrites to go against you. And here, this is what has happened. And then it says here, if you have come out to strive in my way and seek my good pleasure, take them not as friends. This is Subhanahu wa ta'ala saying. You hear what he said? If you are seeking his favor, don't take these people as friends and protectors. He's talking about the Crusaders. He's talking about these governments that are killing Muslims and the government in America who's killing African Americans. They've been killing them for 400 years. 400 years and still killing them. The body bag count is still rising. How are you going to go work with these people? Huh? For some trinkets? What did the Tubab do for you there in the United States when you go to work with him? He give you a plate of victuals and a butter biscuit. And you smile in his face. Why when you turn your back, he call you Nigger. And you go to work for him? This is what here we're talking about here. He says, don't go to those people. If you want his pleasure, meaning you want his bounty that he'll give you, don't go to them. Now, we're not talking about racism here, okay? Because I want this clear. We're talking about those who work against, because as I said, I don't care if that man is white as snow there in Bosnia. He's a Muslim, he's our brother, okay, in faith. Because subhanahu wa ta'ala, I mean, our prophet, alayhi Muslim aku Muslim. Muslim is the brother every Muslim. If he's taking shahadatain and he's a Muslim, color doesn't matter. And like I said, when we come to the masjid, there's no color bar and color line. Okay, the white people, you go over here. The blacks, you go over here. The Mexican, you go here. The Samoan, you go here. The Afghan, you go here. The Pakistan, no. When you hear the adhan, everybody goes and falls in line. Whoever comes first in that first line, they got it. There's no such thing as color. There's no reservations for the whites only on this side here or blacks only here. Everybody comes together and they're shoulder to shoulder and they make their prayer together. There's no color code system in Islam. So this is again something that you should look at this verse and study it. I have studied this verse a lot, and again, for I know full well all that you conceal and all that you reveal. Any of you that does this have strayed from the straight path. Any of you have taken his enemy. You have strayed, and you are out. Be very careful, my brothers and sisters. Now, let me say this. Those who have erred in their ways, subhanahu wa ta'ala is most forgiving. And we've had this. We've had people that, remember inside the United States who worked against Muslims in the masjid, and there's been women too. Something came over them and they repented. And they're among the Muslims again. Subhanahu wa ta'ala, they made their tawbah and they stopped. He is forgiving. And we are to forgive our brothers who do this. But if they don't stop and ask for that forgiveness, they're not among the Muslims. So you have to understand that. I will leave the rest for another day, inshallah. The other, subhanahu wa ta'ala's, with his permission, I will cover the rest of this. I know this is mundane. I know that many people don't like this. And I know this angers many people to talk about this. And there's many people that feel that perhaps I'm out of line. I understand that. And that's your prerogative to feel this way and to say whatever you want to say. I have to give you what is part of the Aqeedah. And that's what I'm doing here. And I have to give you this thing to protect your deen, to help you protect your religion, but help you to keep you on the straight path. Because some of these conditions you may not know, and you will hear the hypocrite come to you, especially the hypocrite African-American who's doing this. He'll come to you and say, hey man, look, hey man, don't listen to this guy. Yeah, he's a fanatic. Look, there's no harm for you. You go, look, the Tubab, he's giving us $100 every day. We go to one masjid, we make a report against the brothers over there. And we go to another masjid, and there's no harm. Do you know that? How you know that? Many of those brothers that you reported, now the Tubab goes and kills them coming out. You know that Imam came on YouTube. He was in tears. I can't think of his name now. He's in my Facebook page. He came on and he was upset. They killed the brother coming out of the masjid. African-American brother. That's right. Our brother was coming out of the masjid and it was coming out of Fajr prayer and he was gunned down. Somebody turned that brother in. Somebody turned him in. They didn't like him. And he came out of he came out of the jail and he became strong. Somebody didn't like him and they turned him over. And they shot him and killed him. They assassinated him coming out of the masjid. And when these hypocrite African Americans who do this come to you and say, hey, don't worry, man, you're not hurting anybody. Yeah, you may not be pulling the trigger, but you aiding and abetting this man. Subhanahu wa ta'ala here tells you, here, you strayed from the path. He's telling you here, you won't get no favors from him. He told you in the other verse that you're out of his religion. The consensus of all the ulama, fuqaha, the Muslims who do this, that they are apostates. They are apostates. And lastly, and I'll finish. Remember last week I talked about this. We have conditions of this. We have to also give this. Those who are under duress. We know that the Tubab love this. He'll set you up. You say, this Yahya, he looks to be a strong Muslim. I'm gonna get this NIGGR. I'm gonna get him. So what they do, they go and they bring a woman. Or they'll watch me and they see me looking down the street. They see me like the blonde hair woman, tall. So they bring them around and they hoping I take the bait. It's like a fish, like in the water, and they put the bait out. And then suddenly I bite on it. Now they come to me and say, hey, you know what? I got you, man. Either you're going to go to jail. I'm going to get you for assault on this white woman, or you go to work for me. That's not apostasy, as I explained. I'm doing that out of fear. Even though it's wrong, I'm still wrong, yes. The scholars disagree on this, if I'm apostate or not. They disagree. They don't know to call this person. Some of the hardline scholars say, no, he's a disbeliever, period. Even though he was forced to do it, they say you should reject that, even if you have to go to jail. But you reject it because you'll be good with subhanahu wa ta'ala. But it's easier said than done, especially when you have a wife, you have children, and people living in hard times. And the minute they take you, the income stops. So what are they going to do for themselves? And you can't ask for a 2-year-old, 3-year-old kid, how are they going to fend for themselves? They can't. So they have to weigh these issues. So he said, okay, I have to do it. And you do it for 1 year and you make a report here and here. That's not apostasy. Okay, because you did it out of fear. And the sister too, who made a mistake. She got mixed up in an affair, and the Tubab has now found her. And they make her now go to the masjid or start to go after the sisters. That's not apostasy. Even though we have a disagreement, but because we don't have the consensus among the Muslims, those who force you to do it, if they're apostates not, we can't call them that. So we leave that they're in a gray area because they are under fear and under duress. So that's why they do this. The other ones are not under fear and duress. Nobody's holding a gun at their head. They go to the Tubab and ask for a job. They go to the Salibin to ask for a job. They go to the governments who fight Muslims and ask for a job. They go to their military to ask to go to their military so they can go fight and kill Muslims. And the Muslims who do this, who go to the militaries of these countries and they go join them to go drop bombs on Muslims, you're not Muslim anymore. The consensus of all the fuqaha ulama is that you are an apostate. So we have to be very careful on this. And then lastly, I'll give you one more and that's it. There's a condition too that I have to tell the Muslims so you understand this. We have conditions where you say, yeah, you're almost saying again, like we have like a code or something where Muslims cannot have nothing to do with anybody else. I never said that because I gave you the condition in the same surah 60 here, but number 8. Subhanahu wa ta'ala told you about this. And there's some other things inside the Quran too as well, where Subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it where you can be friends and have treaties. And our Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, he had treaties with Jews and Christians alike. Okay, so there's those conditions there that you can have relationships with that. And so I wanted to tell you this, that that the Muslims can have treaties. Muawiyah, and if you remember when Ali was killed, radiallahu anhu, when he was assassinated, there was a big fight between the Muslims. The Muslims were now divided, and they were divided about who was going to be the new Khalifa or the new Amir Mu'mineen. Okay, and it was Muawiyah, radiallahu anhu, or Hassan. And so anyway, they ironed it out. So Muawiyah became the Khalifa. Now, here's the thing that's interesting. We talk about, I was just saying about this. They had a treaty with the Romans. It was an uneasy treaty that Muawiyah didn't like it. Okay, he did not like it. But Muslims are of their word. If you have a treaty with a disbeliever, you can. Now remember something: the Muslims fought wars with Christians. The Christians also aided them. Okay, we know this. So see, we're not talking about all. We're talking about those who fight the Muslims. We have Christians that actually aided the Muslims in the early stages of Islam against other Christians. We had that. We had this also in the time of Berbers in the 12th century. Christians came to also aid the Muslims against these people, against their own brothers who were Christians. So we know that, and you can have treaties with them. And on top of that, the case of Muawiyah, he was angry. He remembered, because he was young. He was a young man when Khalid, Saif Allah, said, "Hey, we should walk in there into the Byzantine and wipe them out, take them out for once and for all." He said we should do it now because they're going to come back on us. But Subhanahu wa ta'ala said, no, it's not the time yet for that. So Muawiyah thought in his mind, he said, you know what? I'm going to attack these guys, these Romans, and wipe them out of I don't want to have nothing to do with them anymore. I want to wipe them out. But one of the companions said, hey, and he corrected him and told him, you can't do it because we have a treaty with them. He said, we have a treaty with them. You understand that, my brothers and sisters? If you have a treaty, even with disbelievers, you can do that. Those who don't fight the Muslims. At that time, the Romans were quiet. They had treaties with them. They traded and they had the treaty. You can't go to attack them. Now, if they come with treachery and they begin to attack Muslims, now that treaty is gone. If that treaty ends, say it's a treaty for 10 years, after the 10 years, if you don't renew it, then they're fair game. Okay? You understand what I mean? They're fair game. At no time in this do a Muslim turn over another Muslim to the Romans. In modern times, no Muslim gets another Muslim and turn him over to the Americans or to the French or the German or the Russians. You can't do it. Never. Even if you have a treaty with them, you don't turn a Muslim over to a disbeliever, even if you have a treaty with them. That treaty says you can't attack them. If there's a conflict between the American government and a Muslim group, yes, you can't go against the Americans because of your treaty, but that doesn't mean you go to aid them either. And you don't turn them over. When they come to you, say, look, you know what? I'm here in Morocco. You know what? There's these guys in this one strong Jamaat Islamiyah here, the party, Islamic party. They're very strong. I don't like them. I want them brought here to the United States. We're charged with terrorism, even though they never did anything, because they saw them to be strong. They won't do it here. They know better. They know better. They know the rules. They won't do that. They won't do that. They won't answer to the call. They ask, you turn this guy over. You turn this one over. They don't do that here because they know the rules. They don't do that. Even though they have a treaties with the Americans, they don't turn and hand them over. You can't do it. So my brothers and sisters, I gave you a lesson today on number 8. We're almost getting, because we got 10 of these. I'm at number 8 now. We have a couple more. So bear with me, inshallah ta'ala. I have to cover this, and I'm hoping that I make my points to you, that you do your research to see how serious this is. The Nawaaqid al-Islam Ashara, the nullifiers of Islam number 10, there are 10 of them, is serious business, my brothers and sisters. It's serious business. It's nothing to play with. You see how serious this is? I'm bringing things out what Subhanahu wa ta'ala has said. I told you some of the things that the Prophet _salatu has said. I told you the conditions of when you do it, what happens to you when they get you, they execute you. And even in modern times today, if I live in Morocco is a staunch supporter of Palestine, staunch. One of the strongest of the Arab states is here in Morocco. Okay, and you'll find banners everywhere you go, and they're always demonstrating for Palestine. If they found out that there was a couple of Moroccans that went to go aid the Israeli government, even though now they just got a treaty between them, and you don't know what has happened here. It's been demonstrations. It's kind of calmed down now, but there's a lot of people writing. They were against this. They were against the government to do this. I'm not going to get into that because that's something that the government, that's their business. I cannot go against it, nor am I for it. I have to stay out of that because there's something that Perhaps I don't know why they did what they did. They might have done it under duress. And remember what I told you? When somebody's under duress, you can't go after them and say they're kuffar or they're hypocrites, because you don't know until the time is examined. You got to be careful of that. Many times what happens is they'll say, you know what, this government is apostated government because they did this. You don't know what's behind it. Maybe somebody's holding a gun at the government's head and say, look, if you don't do this, I'm going to do that. So anyway, they're staunch supporters of that government. If they found out there were some Moroccans who were aiding the Israeli government and they came back into Morocco, they will never be able to find it. And they find them, they'll be dead. Not by the police, but the brothers here will get them. I firmly believe that too, because there's a staunch support. Nobody here likes that government. And you go to aid them, you put your life in risk, and you're found out to be a traitor, and you go to assist them over there, and you come back here, you won't be able to walk the streets because somebody's going to take you out. That's why I say the seriousness of this. It's very, very seriousness. It's the seriousness of this is it's beyond belief. You have to understand your deen, my brothers and sisters. So with that said, thank you, my dear sister Amina, for showing up today. And those who did show up in the chat, I know this is hard. I know this is, gut wrenching. It's sad. It's hurtful. It's angering. I understand that. And it's not my purpose. My only is to give you what the Nواقض Ashra is. Okay, Nواقض al-Islam Ashra, what it is. That's what I gave you here, because I have to give that to you because it's part of our Aqeedah. So you'll stay away from it. Today, I hope, and the other days when I talked, that it hurt you, that it reached you, it reached your heart, and you get mad with me. Yes, you say, I'm mad at Yahya. I don't like what he said about this. Perhaps this may spur you now to hit the books, like I said last week, and it spur you to not to do this. If you have ideas to do it, or if you are doing it, that you get mad at me and you think about it and you go do your research and stop it. This is what I want. I'm not here to anger you. I'm here to give you the truth. Sometimes the truth is angering. And I know I probably offended a lot of people, and they probably said all kinds of things. It's not my intention, but I want you only to understand what's there. This is part of our Aqeedah. You can't bypass it. You have to know it. And it's hurtful. Yes, if you're doing this, or you contemplated doing this, or you have done this in the past, it's hurtful. Yes, it is. But my brothers and sisters, subhanahu wa ta'ala is so forgiving. If you reach out to him and you ask for forgiveness, or you ask subhanahu wa ta'ala, please to bless you, to protect you from these 10 nullifiers. You ask that. There's nothing wrong with that. Ask that you be strong. Ask that he allows you to keep on the straight path. And if you do know brothers who are involved, especially in this, helping the disbelievers against the Muslims, try to get them out of that. But again, you have to ask why they're doing it. If he comes to you and Yahya says, you know what, man, I can't get out of it. Because if I do, they're going to take my job from me. If I do, they're going to take my family from me. Where I'm going to live, I have no job in this day and time with all the viruses. If I don't do what they tell me to do, what I'm going to do. We have to understand their conditions like that. These wicked people are putting people, grabbing them by the, you know what, and having them say, hey, you got to do this or this is going to happen to you. So we have to look at each case by the merit of it. And sometimes these people are not apostates because they're doing it under duress. We have to be very careful of that. So my dear brothers and sisters, with that said, I leave you with the beautiful words of Jinnah. Assalamu alaikum, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.